This is NHTV2, North Haven Government Television, a service of North Haven Community Television. The following program is brought to you through the support of the Town of North Haven.
I'd like to call to order the Wednesday, June 16, 2021 North Haven Fire Commission meeting to order. I'd like everyone to stand for a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you remain standing for a moment of silence for deceased Fire Chief Grant, who served the New Haven Fire Department for many, many years in many capacities. Thank you very much. I'd like to ask for the approval of the minutes from the Board of Fire Commission meeting held on May 25th, 2021.
So moved.
Do I hear a second? Second. Any question on the motion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So moved. Chief's report.
Chief's report, we'll start with alarms. Alarms in 2020, at this time we were at 2,047. Alarms as we sit here today in 2021, we're at 2,036, so it's basically right where it was last year. In 2016, we were at 1,848 alarms. So I always try to go back to 5 years. Our last Board of Fire Commission meeting was not that long ago, only May 25th, so the below numbers are a little low just because it's been a short period of time since our last meeting. With that, we've had 15 incident responses to the highway, 55 incidents in which just an ambulance responded and no fire department assets were dispatched. 53% of our calls were EMS related. We had 292 incidents since our last meeting, 58 of which were overlapping, which accounts for 19%. Regarding our budget, it's the same as last month that I reported because it's through period 11, and through period 11, again, it's only been a couple weeks since our last meeting. 91.3% as of this time last year, 95.1% as of this year. Since our last meeting, only 2 collection periods for building permit fees, basically June 1st to June 10th. It totaled $4,680, which brings us to just under $280,000 for this fiscal year. I'm also happy to report something that we don't typically talk about during these meetings, and it was really just because of the way the EMS system was unfolding with the PSA assignment and so forth. But this year we projected $50,000 in revenue in EMS billing. Remember that we only really started with this system in place and the billing system set up the way that it is as of November, when essentially the PSA was reassigned to North Haven. And then don't forget, there's a 60 to a 90-day lapse in billing even from the time that you start providing service. So I'm happy to report that we projected $50,000 in income. As we sit here today, we're at $42,584, and I fully expect, I'm aware of about another $10,000 at least that's going to be going into that account between now and the end of the fiscal year. So we will be over our projected fiscal year revenue projection. And next year, I did put that at $90,000, and I do not see an issue getting to that number, especially when you look at the fact that we're really only looking at about 6 months worth of service, and we're going to be over 50. So again, next year we should be over 90.
And this is a new source of revenue?
This is a source of revenue that we had claimed all along that we were going to be able to collect, and it was, if you recall, it was not something that was coming to fruition, and it was because of the way that our prior ambulance company started flooding us with ambulances and paramedics and so forth. This is what it should have been all along.
Okay.
Yeah. Regarding the fire marshal's office, I did send out a report with your report. I did send out the fire marshal's report. If there's any questions on that, please let me know. And that would have covered last month. For training, since our last meeting, it's been predominantly ground ladders, hose deployment and maneuvering. and some marine operations. I have nothing to report for other, and that's all I have for a chief's report.
Any questions of the chief regarding his report? The chief, I'm pleased that we are at projected as far as the EMS building is concerned. I know there was a tremendous amount of controversy as to whether or not we would reach those numbers, and we know why the delay occurred. So, and looking at increasing that to 90,000 next year, a significant increase, I think,
Sure.
is it will be beneficial for the department and for the town. That's for sure.
It's worth noting that we're under in our building permit projection, and so is the building office. It's because of the tail end of COVID, and from what we understand right now, the construction prices are so high that there's a lot of new building construction that hasn't started yet because we're all just kind of waiting to see what happens with pricing. But, we're all aware of a number of projects that are shovel-ready, but we don't see any construction going on. And so we fully expect that as soon as the costs start to go back down, we'll see that number driven right back up
The
again.
cost of lumber and steel and,
Yeah.
other building materials are like 3-4 times what they were.
So we're under, building department is under, and we fully expect that at this point.
And Chief, just an explanation, the 55 calls that ambulances only responded to, that's a combination of better dispatching, where only ambulance was required, not our staff.
Correct.
And in some instances, we did not have fire apparatus or personnel available, is that correct?
No, not so much anymore. I'm not really able to run that number again like we did at one time until we actually run all 4 shifts the same way. Right now, with it being 2 shifts on some days and 2 shifts 2 other days, it's possible to kind of tease out. But quite honestly, I just don't see the value in it yet, just because we know that we're going to get Engine 9 down at Mount East covered 24/7, probably around the end of this calendar year that we're in. I think then the value would be having to look and see if we're delayed or missing calls at that point. I could do it right now, but we know there's a fix. We know that we're going to put more apparatus on. So I'm just not running that number right now. But that 55 incidents, the lion's share of that is going to be, as you said, it's going to be incidents in which the fire department was not needed, and it's because we're doing a better job of triaging the 911 calls now. And it's going to be some calls that were taking place at private healthcare facilities that we never need to go to anyways.
Our 911 operators have absolutely been better trained and are more capable of triaging those calls.
Yeah.
And which obviously cuts down on the number of calls that we have to respond to.
100%.
That's wonderful.
Yep, we purchased a software this past fiscal year. We increased the staffing. When I say we, it's the fire department and the police department. And it had nothing to do with the PSA. People sometimes confuse those two. They just both happen at the same time, but they were 2 different projects.
Quick follow-up on the delayed, so when you have overlapping calls, do you track if there's overlapping calls and there's not someone to respond or there's a delay? I think you used to give us that.
I did, yeah, and I can do that. Again, I think we were trying to make a case then for additional staffing. Again, we know that it's coming. We just got to get the firefighters through the academy and get them trained and get them on duty. And so I think I could still find it now, but I feel like we're aware of it. We know that it happens sometimes, and we just need to be able to finish staffing 24/7. As soon as that's done, I think at that point it'll be easier to run those reports, and we'll be able to identify if there's needs that aren't being met.
Would it be fair to say that the number of those calls are nowhere close to what they
Sure.
were in the past?
Yes, 100%.
Because of the dispatching in particular.
So it's a combination of both. The dispatching has gotten better, so that, again, because the fire department's not responding to as many calls, the chances of us not having a unit available decreases because we're going on, you could say that we're arguably going on less calls, right, in theory. But if you look at our call volume, it's really what it was last year. So we're making up for the call volume in other things that are happening in town. So we're fortunate that we are able to start taking some calls out of the system because our call volume's going up anyways.
And Chief, you mentioned, and I know we talked about this in the past, there was some healthcare buildings that we excluded from our calls because they had physicians or emergency persons that were there. Do we have any additional buildings that we're not going to as a result of the medical personnel that are in those buildings?
Yeah, so the only buildings that we're not going to, it doesn't matter if there's a physician there or not, it matters more so on what the nature of the complaint is. So if it is a low priority in nature and we can send just an ambulance, then that's what we do. Even if you're at a physician's office or the walk-in or anything else, if it's a high priority call, we're able to respond. Sometimes it depends if our ambulance service has the ability to send a paramedic unit or not. And it's important to remember that we're talking, these are just our overlapping calls. These aren't the ambulance overlapping calls. We're regularly 4 or 5 calls deep in this town just with medicals alone. So it's not that a paramedic is always available. It's a very diverse, fluid shift every day with calls in this town.
Very good, thank you. Any other questions of the chief regarding his report? Hearing none, we'll move on to correspondence. Chief?
Nothing other than a normal day-to-day correspondence.
Any commissioners receive any correspondence? No. Discussion of unfinished business for the fire department.
I have on here the training facility, again, located behind the station that we're at now at 366 Washington Avenue. It's well underway. They're now building out all 5 floors. The stairs are going to get built as soon as the walls are all up, and then after the stairs, they'll start working on the outside, and it looks like we're looking at a completion date of sometime in July. I have on here the state of the apparatus. At this moment, all of the apparatus are in service as we sit here today. We have some routine repairs that we're working on that are pretty regular for us to tackle. No significant long-term maintenance issues that we're watching. We've talked before about one of our apparatus that was struck. We have the insurance money in. I'm holding off on getting that repaired just because I'm going to wait until something else is needed to repair the bodywork on it so that it makes sense to pull it out of service for both a mechanical issue and a bodywork issue at the same time. Again, we really try to minimize how often our apparatus is out of service for. And with the budget now approval of 2 engines, we're going to place that order hopefully in July, and we should start to see the apparatus maintenance issues diminish in the next 14 to 18 months when we take delivery of the new apparatus. I have on here the new recruits, which are the firefighter paramedic applications. We did accept applications for career firefighter paramedics through the month of May, and we have 7 applicants, which is about normal when you look at surrounding towns that require just paramedics. If we were testing EMTs, it would be probably in the 100 to 150. If we had no requirements at all for EMS, we probably would add hundreds like we used to back when I got hired. So 7 paramedics is about normal when you talk to other departments. All 7 were provided a written test today, a cognitive test today. We'll be interviewing them in a couple of weeks, and I hope to have them appear before this board in your July meeting for the interviews so that we can start moving forward with hiring and get them into the academy for the end of August. I have on here unfinished business. Last month we had discussed the community service hours that we had just kind of put a feeler out to the high school to determine if there was any interest in community service hours for painting hydrants. And I know that the commission had expressed some concern, and I'm just looking to see if there's been any further movement on that. We do have quite an interest from high school students. We're probably at somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 to 10 students at this point. So I just wanted to update the commission on that.
Did you have a chance to talk to Mr. Frieda at all about, or did we send a letter? Because we had talked about that last month. I just personally feel like, given the resources of the volunteer firefighters, we should be using them for their expertise. And to be having volunteer firefighters supervising students to paint hydrants, to me seems like not a good use of their skills and their time. So I really think we should explore, having Public Works take that particular thing on. I mean, in terms of the community service hours, if you had kids that were interested in, looking at, the fire department, the checks on the fire hydrants seem like that would be a better sort of combination of the firefighters with the students, as something that relates to the fire department. But just to have them spending their time painting hydrants, to me, seems like a real misuse of a very specific skill that we need in this town. And I don't really think it's, I think we should at least explore it, because it obviously was something at one point in time, it wasn't a big deal, but as, being a firefighter has become more technical and, the skill, we don't have as many firefighters, volunteers as we used to. I really think we should be exploring, making a switch. And it seems like either a letter from us, or maybe you can go and shake hands with Mr. Frieda and say, "What this great idea."
Well, I knew this subject was going to come up. I did not have an opportunity to meet with Mike Frieda personally. I did have a call with him, and as you might be aware, and I think the town is aware, optics is a real important matter for Mike Frieda. I mean, I've seen where he's replaced trash cans that are rusted or dented, and he wants to make sure that our town looks good. He has committed to spend time with me. He didn't have time between the last meeting and this meeting for us to meet, and part of it was my fault. I've been tied up with a number of things. So we are planning on getting together to speak about this issue, and so my expectation at our next meeting, we'll have a resolution to this. And I think looking at the students and their needs to have community service is something that is important. I would be concerned as to whether or not painting fire hydrants is something for them to do, and whether or not it's safe for them to do. So we'll need to come to that conclusion. But to answer your question, I'll absolutely have an opportunity between now and the next meeting to meet with Mike to discuss specifically handling the painting of fire hydrants. Now, the maintenance of fire hydrants, and correct me if I'm not wrong, Chief, in other towns, it's done by a mechanic. So what do we do from the mechanical standpoint to make sure that, when our firefighters go out and they turn it on, it works? What happens there?
Yeah, so we're talking about a few different things. The painting of the hydrants, we have it on a 4-year schedule. So we identified roughly 850 hydrants in town.
850?
Yeah, thereabouts. And we've the town's divided into grids on a map similar to what you look at if you were to pick up a road map.
Yep.
We've identified by each company which hydrant should get done, and it's on a 4-year rotation. So, roughly, you split it in 3, and it was always pretty manageable for us to do. That's something that is, is a little bit time sensitive for us, and it's something that to your point, it may be better used by somebody else, better done by somebody else. Mm-hmm. The testing of the hydrant is a requirement. Well, I just say it's a requirement. It's something that we strive to do for ISO. So ISO, our insurance rating, does look for us to check hydrants twice a year, and so that's why oftentimes you see the flag go up on most hydrants throughout towns and the flag go down. So the flags are coming down now in the spring, they'll go back up in the fall. We keep track of the hydrants that we're doing that with. We count that as a check. Typically when they take the flag down or off, at least once during while they're either putting it up or they're taking it down, they're checking for the hydrant and make sure that it drains correctly, that it flows water, that the threads are operable. And so those are things that the fire department does need to continue to do. The fire department keeps track of that, and we're able to capture some points during our auditing process from the ISO for that. It's the painting that really doesn't have to be done by fire staff.
And do we have a flag for every single 850 fire hydrants?
We did at one time. They get damaged. They're not. That's something that we have to worry too much about. Things have changed a little bit too, because what we're doing now is we typically put them in some target areas where we know the snowbanks get high. We know they're hard to find because of bushes. But we've come so far now that in every apparatus there's an iPad and we can see the hydrant, and we know exactly where we are in relation to that hydrant. And so it's not as imperative as it once was to put the flags up everywhere because we can find the hydrants. It's really during deep, heavy snow, and that's why oftentimes in the wintertime, if we start getting especially recurring snowstorms, flag or no flag, you'll see our staff out there digging hydrants out because we want to make sure that we can at least find them.
Yeah. And Chief, would you speak to the significance of the different color rings
Sure.
that are on fire hydrants?
Yeah, sure. So that's an initiative that I took on a couple years ago for the department. So the rings correlate to an NFPA standard, which cover the pressure that we're going to get out of that hydrant. And so the pressure has a lot to do with how much water we're going to get, and then how effective that'll be in that area of town. So the striping, every color means something. So you'll see some hydrants are grouped into certain colors. Depending on what side of town we're going, you'll see other color hydrants. But it's reflective striping, so we can find it at night as well. And it's just one more aid, just for us to be able to sight the hydrant.
And again, the price of a hydrant that is damaged and or stolen is what?
About $4,500. So when
And we replace how many per year?
well, it depends on the year.
Yeah.
So we replace typically 6 to 10 a year. Sometimes it's higher, sometimes it's lower. Sometimes the insurance the insurance reimburses the town for it. Doesn't reimburse our line. We discussed that last month, but the insurance reimburses the town. Other times the hydrant is struck and it's stolen, and so we have to pay for a new hydrant. They're quite expensive.
And we have a line item in our budget for
We do.
hydrants?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? I mean, it's probably more than what we want to know about fire hydrants, but it's kind of interesting. Obviously, they're important, and I think the optics are important. I think making sure that they're painted and look neat throughout the town says a lot about who we are as a town. And I think Mike is all about the optics and making sure that our town looks beautiful. And I'm hopeful that he'll be supportive of that.
Okay.
Yep. Anything else under unfinished business, Chief?
I have nothing further.
Okay. New business for the fire department.
New business, I have listed on your agenda a motion to upgrade career firefighter Simmel to grade A effective July 6, 2021, because we will not be meeting between now and then. That is a contractual obligation that we have. He has great reviews, and there's no reason we should hold him back.
Perfect. Commissioner Zuccarelli, would you be kind
I'd
enough to
like to
make that
make a
motion?
motion to elevate firefighter Ethan Simmel to grade A firefighter effective July 6, 2021.
Do I hear a second to the motion?
Second.
Is there any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Anything else for the good of the department, Chief?
Nope. No, sir.
Public comments? Hearing none. I'd like to entertain a motion to allow into our executive session the 3 company captains to join in executive session.
So
I make a
moved.
motion to allow the 3 company captains to join into executive session.
Do I hear a second to that motion?
Second.
Any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Entertain a motion to move into executive session.
So moved.
Favor? Executive session, thank you. I'd like to reconvene the Wednesday, June 16, 2021 North Haven Fire Commission meeting to order. Is there any further business coming before this commission?
No.
Hearing none, I'd like to announce that our next regularly scheduled Board of Fire Commission meeting will be Tuesday, July 27, 2021 at 6 p.m. here in this building. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.